Okay, so in today's video, the topic I wanted to cover was talking about SL or super light boots. So we did see sort of around that sort of 2010 era where a lot of brands, especially, Adidas and Puma, were pushing sort of SL lightweight versions of their inline boot. So for example, this is an Adi Power, but the SL version. So it was a full synthetic upper with a much more minimal striking element, and it had the sprint frame sole plate on it as well. So basically using F50 DNA to make a Predator a much lighter boot. Similar thing with the Puma V1.10 SL. The .10 was a big, heavy, clunky boot, and then they released almost a completely different silo to make a SL version of their current speed boot. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about this because I think it's something that we really don't see brands do all that often. And I think the main reason for that, and why we just don't see brands spending that extra, R&D development on, making these SL boots, is because modern boots are so lightweight now, and I've found such sort of a happy medium weight that it's almost a little bit redundant to do an SL version. So these two boots, this is marketed when it came out as the lightest weight Predator ever, when this Predator Adi Power came out in SL. And this Pred 25 in the hybrid touch with a fold over tongue and rubber striking elements and, a normal sole plate and everything, this is only like 10 grams heavier than the SL product. And honestly, you can't really feel it in hand all that much. And in terms of playing experience, this hybrid touch is much nicer than this hybrid touch. And the rubber striking elements are actually there. And again, if we cut off the tongue, we're probably not even that far away in terms of exact weight. And you've got a much, much better performing boot in a Pred 25 than this Adi Power SL ever was. So I think that's something where a lot of these companies, they've looked at it and gone, well, this is pretty light already, and no one's really complaining about weight on this boot. So why do this again? And I think another thing that adds to it is they were pretty easily able to just throw like a Adi Zero or F50 sole plate onto something like the Predator, and then they'd lose 20-30 grams immediately just with a sole plate because of how heavy the Predators used to be. But if we look at something like the F50 Mercy, or call it just the current F50, the weight difference on this is still very minimal. And I think more of it is to do with the upper and construction than the sole plate, because the stud layout, the materials, the strengthening sort of the midfoot, it's all very similar. So I honestly think that if we took the sole plate from this Mercy and threw it on the Predator, you're not really going to see this big, jump in how lightweight the boot is. I think it's going to be very similar. So unless Adidas wants to go through specific R&D development to find a much, much lighter weight way to do the insole, or a lighter material to make it out of, and then make another whole SL line and throw it on the F50 and also the Predator, I just don't think they've got sort of the tools in the current lineup to just throw a different sole plate on and make this boot an SL product with ease. And we have seen versions of SL boots that weren't very good as well. So this is a Puma King SL, and this is a second generation, and they really tried to thin it down. The sole plate is incredibly thin, lightweight, and you can see it has that sort of speed boot silhouette to it, really low toe box. But they made it out of some of the worst imitation synthetic leather I've ever seen, and anyone who liked Puma Kings had zero interest in this boot because it didn't feel like leather. It was stiff. Yes, it was lightweight, but there were other lightweight boots out there that fit way better and were way more desirable. So again, boots like this was sort of a sign of it not being just a slap a lightweight sole plate on it and job done. This is a good example of what not to do. And then I also think boots like this, the Evo Speed SL, These boots weigh in at around 105 grams, and they are so thin that basically see through with the boot. Durability were horrible. It literally felt like there was nothing on your foot when you were striking a ball. And this is, again, we got to that stage where it was too light. It was too thin. There was no structure. And yes, it was a super light product, but I just don't think anyone was really wanting to actually play a game in these. So again, like we see it on the current Puma Ultras. So they have the Ultra Carbon. It's no lighter than the standard Ultra, but it's gone in sort of a different direction, being that it's more sort of innovative and more responsive. And I think that's something that I think Nike has done a pretty good job of over the years. So using sort of the Superfly as an example, I know a lot of them, when they were released, the sort of Superfly, also the Mercurial SL, and then the Superfly 1 and 2, they were sort of marketed as like the lightest Mercurials that we ever had. But then when we're getting into sort of the Superfly, or sort of 2 and 3, and then also into the Superfly 4, these weren't the lightest versions. The normal Vapor compared to the Superfly were actually lighter. And for example, using the Superfly 4, like yes, this boot had all the hype around it being this, you know, mid-cut collar design and the Flyknit, full Flyknit upper, and you had this insane looking carbon fiber sole plate. And it was right around that time when they were doing all of those Nike Elite Series boots with the carbon fiber sole plates. But the Mercurial at the time, the Vapor 10, was lighter, a lot lighter, and had a thinner, nicer Tahitian synthetic. But I think it was good when Nike was using the Superfly as this experimental boot, essentially, you know, putting Flyknit in the boot for the first time, putting Flywire cables within the Flyknit, the mid-cut collar, the carbon fiber sole plates. Like, yes, that then was meant to be seen as lightweight, even though this is a much lighter product. And yeah, I did like when they used that boot as more of that experimental boot, not having to be the lightest, but you can go, you know, potentially more responsive or a new material they want to try out. And I think that's something that the Puma Ultra has done a good job of going. You've got the normal Ultra with the plastic sole plate, this one just here, and then the Ultra Carbon has got the full carbon sole plate. It's actually a little bit heavier, but it's more, like a lot more responsive than what the plastic sole plate is. And I think that's a good sign and a good direction for a lot of these companies to go in. And they've sort of stepped away from just going, yep, super lightweight boot, and, you know, we'll throw a different sole plate on it and have this lightweight product. Instead, I think it is a better choice to go inline boot and then, you know, sort of the experimental boot. I think that makes a lot more sense, because if we look at it with modern day materials now, if I pull these two out, so we're talking Mizuno Ultralight, which is obviously a remake of the boot from the early 2000s, and Mizuno Morelia DNA. These are almost the same weight. They're right around that 204-5 grams. And even a normal Morelia, not even on the DNA, sorry, the DNA, when it's not on the Neo sole plate, it's still like 206, 207 grams. So yes, the Ultralight is a lighter boot. And when this boot came out in the early 2000s, it was much lighter than the regular Morelia. But with how good modern plastics have got, the standard Morelia isn't all that different to an Ultralight. And you can sort of see that, like, yes, this has the Neo sole plate on it, which does help a little bit, but we're talking a couple of grams with a DNA compared to a Morelia. So even with Mizuno, there's not really a big difference in these two boots, even though this is marketed as an Ultralight. And the newest Ultralight they just did, yes, they've now pushed it to sort of that 180 mark, which is much, you know, talking 25 grams, that will be something you can feel in hand. But at the end of the day, is it really going to be a super noticeable difference when we're playing with a full kangaroo leather upper? Like, are we really caring now about 20 grams on a boot that's already at 200 grams. I just think it's something where with modern day materials and what's out there at the moment, there's just not a lot of demand for these SL boots. So yeah, I think it's a bit of a shame because we did see some really crazy things come out, but I think it's also a good thing that the market has stepped away from that super lightweight focus and are now focusing on boots that provide a better overall experience, better performance attributes, in things like, you know, the F50 Mesa. Yes, it's not the lightest boot in the world, but it's got a really nice upper and it performs really well. It's a really good overall boot and really durable compared to something like an Evo Speed SL. Like, these will fall apart, you'll get a whole season out of these. So yeah, I thought it would just be an interesting topic to talk about how the market, the football boot market, has changed. And, you know, we've got our second generation of the F50 Mesa now. No mention of any SL super lightweight version coming. And Puma themselves have sort of moved on to, you know, the Ultra. And they've got that sort of experimental boot with the carbon fiber sole plate. And I think that's a really good direction. So yeah, that's basically the topic for today and what I wanted to talk about with SL boots. But yeah, leave some comments down the bottom with your thoughts and what you sort of think, if it's a good thing that we don't really have a lot of SL boots now and we've sort of got a pretty good lightweight boot overall in the general market, or if it's something that you'd like to see back, and if so, what does that look like? But yeah, thank you for watching. If you did like the video, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.